G'day, hi and welcome. Whew, getting warm in here. Not getting, it is. We're supposed to get a bit of a storm this afternoon. Inboard motors for engines for sailboats under 30 feet. Pros and cons. I'll start with the pros. The pros are simple. It's like the difference between having an outboard and an inboard is like the difference between having power steering and not. Folding prop, non-folding prop, different argument there. I'll keep that for a separate thing. This has a fixed prop, fixed pitch prop. It doesn't fold up, which means it's always dragging in the water. But when I put it in reverse, I can back this boat out at the speed of smell with complete control. I can go forward at the speed of smell or, give it 3/4 throttle, whatever, and zip along through the marinas. It could be blowing a hurricane out there, and I got full control over this 26-footer. Where an outboard, you're a little bit more going here, there, and everywhere, and you got to reline up, and it's a bit of an art form with an outboard. So this is the easy stuff. It's really good that way. The other thing is that you don't see it. On this boat, the transom on this boat is actually quite nice because it's so nice and clean, Makes it feel like it's a bigger boat because you don't see all this stuff hanging off of it. And unlike an outboard, you can't lose it. It's not the transom bracket isn't going to get knocked off on you and you're going to lose it, right? So it's there. Other things is that the idea that when you're in the cockpit and you're using, it's just your attention is fully where it needs to be. You can keep your hand on the tiller. You don't have to reach behind you, try to handle the tiller and the outboard at the same time, or pull the tiller up, depending on your boat. This boat, you can't pull the tiller up. So, you don't have things in your way. So you only have hands on one control and on the throttle. So that is a very nice feature to have, for inboard, or you have a wheel, whatever it is. But the point is you don't have to kind of throttle and, keep the rudder straight and move with the engine, or move the rudder and hold the engine straight. You don't have to do that. So that is a nice feature. There are probably a couple other benefits, but I'll leave it at that. What are the drawbacks? Well, smells. Even with the bilge blowers, you will always smell fuel in the boat. Whether it's a diesel or a gas powered like mine, doesn't matter. It's only a little 7.5 horsepower in here. So, you don't need a huge, powerful engine in a boat under 30 feet. It's not like you can get the boat up going fast anyway. 9 horsepower, 10 horsepower, max you need. 5 horsepower will do probably most boats, unless in really heavy weather. If you're going to be in heavy weather, then 15, 20, 25, 30 horse, whatever. Diesel versus gas, we'll argue that later on. Diesel being the more expensive of the two usually. Maybe not so much to run, but to repair. The main thing that is a pain in the butt on these things is to work on them. You got to get into a tight spot. And if you have a problem, another huge disadvantage. You got to pull the boat out of the water to usually fix it, which that gets costly, right? And you have a massive through hull. That is a potential for a leak. There's the cooling pet cot valve that you have to remember to shut off. Sometimes your boat can get flooded because you leave those on, and things can happen. You forget to open it up when you start up the boat. You cook your impeller. Then you got to pull the boat out of the water again. Repairs, again, difficult area to repair. The smell. This boat has a pretty good silencer on it, so noise-wise, that could be an issue depending on how yours is. If yours is just hooked up right to the exhaust, or like mine, where I have like a silencer can. This thing runs it's a 7.5 Honda on a Volvo Penta 50, so it's pretty quiet, but it's still, this is a small boat, so quiet is relative, right? You'll tell the mice in here to keep it down. Yeah. So that's some of the other things. And the other big one is boats under 30 feet, having a prop dragging in the water is lost speed. So that's just some of the things to consider. So what about an outboard? Well, I'll start with the pros. Well, no fuss, no muss. You don't like the thing? grab it, throw it in the water. No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. It's hanging off the back of the boat. You could have two of them. So if one breaks down, you can throw the other one on. You could put a bigger one on there. You could sell it, upgrade, whatever. You could put an electric outboard on there if you wanted. I've seen a lot of people do that. Something I want to do with this. The prop is never dragging in the water. If you have to work on it, you can grab it, take it home, and work on it. You don't have to pull the boat out of the water. The other thing is that they're usually a lot cheaper. And you can usually find a lot more common outboards out there, so the parts are cheaper too. 9.9 Evinrude, stuff like that, you know. You get the advantage too of, like, especially for people who race, again, not having that prop dragging in the water. Or you could take, you know, like if you're during a race, you could take to save weight, you can actually take the outboard off, give it to the some people, say, here, take the motor. Now you got a slightly, you know, a boat that will do better in low wind because you're, you know, 50 pounds lighter or 20 pounds, 30 pounds lighter. Might make a difference, might not, but it's an advantage. Other things is you can put as big on there as you want, as little on there as you want. It's not permanent. You don't have to worry about a bilge blower as much. You probably won't have that, so that's less wiring. The smell is outside. It does get in, you know, depending on which way the wind's going, but it's out there. And the sound is out there for people that might want to be in the cabin. So, although they tend to be a bit noisier than some of the inboards with silencer mufflers on it. So that's just some of the disadvantages. The other one is cost. Outboard is always usually like once you have the Tanzan bracket on there, you know, you can find a $500 outboard sometimes in mint condition, or $100 or $50, whatever it is. Yeah, there's a lot of advantages there. So if you're looking for a boat that usually once you get over the 26 foot like this and into the 30-foot range, you tend to need a little bit more power, but you can get away with a small outboard, you know, and again, you have the potential for a backup. This one, you could put a Tanzan on there and have another motor sitting there as a backup, but if you were going to do that anyway, you might as well get rid of the inboard and save your you know, it's a much simpler system, you know, the exhaust and everything on an outboard. So it's just something that people need to consider when they're buying. So yeah, it doesn't look as good. The downsides to the outboard are simple. You don't have the same control over the helm. Like I say, you got to kind of, you know, play around with them. Your attention's elsewhere when you're trying to back up. You can, you know, you have another potential. You got a through hull there as well on the back Tanzan, which sometimes you could lose your outboard. You wouldn't think that would happen, so make sure you secure it fastly. But sometimes the whole bracket just rips off because, you know, it gets rotted out or whatever, and that's a pain. The other thing is that it's usually a lot messier. It's also a lot noisier most of the time on the outside, so it disturbs your neighbors. It also, you know, if you're one of those people that you have to take the motor off all the time when you leave your yacht so nobody steals it on you, put it back on, take it up, that can become a very big pain. You have to find a place for the fuel tank. Some boats have accommodation in the cockpit. Other boats have a tank sitting in the middle of the cockpit that everybody's tripping over. That's the kind of thing. It's exposed to the elements, so it can get tarnished. It can the hose lines can rot out a lot faster on you. There's always a trade-off somewhere. Yeah, people steal parts off of it. Like I say, so you end up, and you'd be surprised, even at a very high-priced yacht club, people will still go and steal people's parts off of, or steal the entire outboard as well. I don't know how they think they're going to get away with it if they're a member of the same yacht club, but people try, you know, people do strange things. Next to that, I guess I'll leave it at that. I guess it's can't really see how much time there. Yeah, it's a pretty good lake, but it just gives you a couple of things to consider. Myself, with this boat, if I had the option between a outboard and no outboard, or inboard or outboard, it's very tough. I do like the inboard for certain things, the control. But because it's a slower boat, I would probably go with the outboard, just for the idea that I might gain an extra half knot of speed. Whatever. Ideally, I'd love to be able to have a retractable inboard. Electric. You know, that would be very cool. But anyway, there you go. Have yourselves a great day, eh?